using AI in the context of Atlassian becomes incredibly powerful when you can take ideas that start off as a Confluence page or a Jira issue and expand on them really quickly.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Summer of Atlassian 4.0. Today I got Caroline Adams, and we're going to be talking about all things Atlassian, specifically some very thoughtful stuff that I think you're going to find very interesting. So Caroline, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Alex. It's great to be here.
So I tell you at the beginning, he looks strangely familiar. I know I've seen your face. And so Team 25, how was that for you?
Team 25 was actually really good for me. It was my first time in over 10 years attending an Atlassian conference as an independent person. I have been in the ecosystem for over a dozen years. And the last time I attended, it was called Summit at the time,
Yeah.
that conference. I was an engineering manager for a tools team, an internal tools team, and had just adopted the Atlassian ecosystem. And that was back in the Jira 4 days.
Okay. Taking us back
So
a
I've
little
been
bit.
around a long time.
I'm assuming you're very familiar with the UGs as well, or the OGs. What do they call the Atlassian user groups? The AUGs,
OGS, yeah.
OGs. Well, awesome.
UG is only what they use when they think about how they have to organize the
Mm,
event.
that and when they redo the entire UI. How you feeling about that new UI? Have you had a chance to play with it yet?
Which UI are you referring to? The
Jira,
community?
the new updated
Oh,
Jira.
I love the new Jira update.
Okay, so you're not an
I'm
UG.
actually I'm not an UG person. I'm fine with the new UI. I think it's more intuitive.
It's
It just takes a while to get used to.
it does, especially when you have all that muscle memory. Re I remember, oh, I want to say October of last year. No, it had to be before October. Yeah, no, probably October of last year. On the drop down for the little gear on the top right corner, they changed the order. They put the user management, it used to be at the top and they moved it to the bottom. And
Mhm.
everybody started freaking out because like you would always click on that very first button and all of a sudden you were taken to like Atlassian documentation and not where you're supposed to go. And I had people freak out on me like, what's going on? Did I lose my privilege? I'm like, nope, they just decided to move it down. It's still there. So it caused so much chaos for like a good 4 or 5 hours of my life when they just moved the button down, and now they redesigned the whole UI and every button's in a different spot. But yeah, fun times with Atlassian. So you said your first team coming in as an independent. Walk me through that because I was looking at your background. You were a very well, I wouldn't say. I would still say you are a very well achieved person. But walk me
Thank you.
through walking away from what I would assume was a nice, comfy, well-paying job to going out on your own. What emotions did that create?
Oh, all sorts of emotions. It's actually rather simple. I became disillusioned with the partner ecosystem to a degree, the solution partner ecosystem, because it wasn't moving fast enough in the direction that I thought Atlassian was headed.
Mhm.
And I wanted to do my own thing at my own pace, which happens to be faster than the solution partners are able to go right now. I think that between AI, Atlassian's advancements that they're making with Jira and Confluence and Rovo and now Loom, I think that those things all play a part in how fast solution partners need to move. And if they don't move faster than they are today, they're going to become irrelevant.
Yeah, because a lot of the solution partners that I speak with, a lot of the work was in the migration from data center to cloud, right? But a
Mhm.
lot of that's drying up. And I get a sentiment from a lot of partners that I work with where it's a little bit of a panic. It's a little bit of uncertainty and unknowns of like, well, we we were really good at this, but we really don't know what's next. And I have heard that Atlassian on their behalf, like they're having sessions to kind of tell the partners, here's what's coming up next. Here's how to prepare, but it's a different skill set. It's a
Mhm.
much different skill set when it comes to AI and Jira and Loom and Confluence. And you need more like architect type of mindset and less system admin, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So
It's actually to put a bow on what you just said, solutions are all Atlassian talks about to solution partners. They should be coming up with solutions that are inclusive of the Atlassian tool set and not focusing on the individual tools and how to manage them, but how to make them work better together,
yeah, and you can
to
see that
use
with the
Atlassian's
collections.
term.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the collections are coming out swinging hard, and we'll talk about collections. But I still want to stay on the topic of, again, you're walking out as a VP, right? This is the
Mhm.
last position you had, and so the reason I'm curious about it is right on March 3rd of this year, so about a month before you did your change, I too kind of left a very cozy, well-paying job to kind of just do this on my own, right?
Mhm.
And but I sat on that decision for almost 18 months of just
Mm.
uncertainty. I got 2 kids that like to eat a lot. I have a very expensive house in Southern California, right? Very a lot of like, how am I gonna eat tomorrow questions that lingered for me or on me for 18 months. And I'm just curious, like, how did any of those thoughts ever come to you?
Oh, absolutely, and they still do. It's because I'm finding my way. I've been on my own now for a month and a half. And so it's like second guessing yourself at every turn is the natural state. Like,
Mhm.
am I doing the right thing? Should I be doing something different? But I think that's natural, that you do that. And that's part of the reinforcement exercise that you have to go to remind yourself, what are you doing that is true to you and reflects your intent?
But that's so much easier said than done because like I have a notebook here. It's my planner. And in
Okay.
here I do a lot of stuff. So to continue to feed the family, YouTube is just one key component of it, right? But helping people with their Jira problems is something that takes up a good amount of my time as well. But since I went on my own, that time slot, the meetings that I'm in, that quote unquote productivity that I used to feel kind of has subsided. Like if I have 1 or 2 hours of like meetings, I feel like I have a void. And I'm scared. I'm nervous. I'm like, am I not, is this not going to work out?
Oh, that the so you have to remember the opposite of that, the meeting fatigue, where you're in pointless meetings for hours on end every day, and remind yourself that you're more productive in those 2-hour blocks of meetings than you were in an entire day
Day.
previously.
Yeah. I can definitely agree with that because my clarity in those meetings, even though now they're a lot smaller, like I'm very well relaxed coming into them. I used to be very stressed. But what stresses me out now, though, is up here to the side what you can't see, is a whiteboard full of all the things that I want to achieve now that I'm on my own. And I find myself just being overwhelmed by not being able to even know where to even start to pull the thread. How do you feel? Like when you came out on your own and you decided to launch your own thing, how do you find your I guess your footing? And this is turning more to my therapy session than it is anything else, right?
No, that's okay, that's okay. Um, I think that for me, team was actually, a catalyst to helping me figure out what it was I wanted to focus on. I already knew that I wanted to focus on solutions. I knew that I wanted to help people, and I knew that I wanted to go into a regulated space. One of the things that Atlassian has talked about for quite some time is verticalization.
System of
I
work
think, well, no, I
beyond.
think that beyond that. So I don't think that Atlassian is going to verticalize, meaning that they're going to focus on a particular industry, but I think that they want Atlassian solution partners to focus on verticalizing. So becoming proficient in particular industries so that Atlassian can go and tap, say, Ethicode and say, Ethicode, you are the med tech expert.
Mm.
And then Ethicode focuses on just the things that are
In that
med
industry.
tech in that
Yeah,
industry.
'cause that makes sense because a lot of what I've seen is usually a product centric. Like, if we take Epic Code as an example, that I'm not associated with them,
Neither am
but
I.
they're a ITSM solution provider, right? And so they
Mhm.
focus heavily on the ITSM part, but every industry has its carved out niche on how they do ITSM, and they don't
Mhm.
all translate to be the same.
Exactly. So what has happened with Atlassian's previous strategy over the last, I'll say 10 years because that's how long it's
Yeah, I
actually
was
been
gonna say
going on.
decade.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been that long, is that they have focused on having a horizontal strategy. So it was software and then it was ITSM, and those were kind of meant to layer on top of each other with their tool set. And you even still see vestiges of this with the announcement at Team about the HR onboarding stuff with Journey Builder,
Mhm.
where they're going after a horizontal. I mean, it sounds kind of vertical HR, right? But what they've done is they've built a new way of working across industries for a particular function in the business. But while Atlassian is going to continue doing that, I'm sure, I think that solution partners need to say, okay, how do we implement these Atlassian features and functions in this industry specifically?
But that gets very tricky because Atlassian themselves aren't in every industry, right? They're a very special industry, and every industry has its nuances for how it's supposed to work. So how do you? I feel like, have you ever seen that circle of like, I can't get a job because I don't have experience, and I don't have experience because I can't get a job? Like, how do you enter like this cycle? Because I'm assuming a lot of the solution partners today aren't in like focus on industries, and you can't focus on an industry because you're not. Like, does that make sense?
It does make sense. So I think that the solution partners actually have more experience in particular industries than they give themselves credit
Mm,
because they have a client base, and that client base is in industries.
right.
So look at which ones you serve the most often, categorize them, and then say, okay, this is where we have the most case studies, the most evidence, the most experience, and go after that industry as opposed to I'll take anything and everything I can get. I mean, yes, at the end of the day, you're probably not going to turn down
Work.
work that comes in, but your go-to-market strategy, the things that you talk about publicly that bring in customers, can be very focused and very intentional. And I think that that's one of the things that a lot of the solution partners are missing today.
And it makes a lot of sense because I see a lot of focus on. Well, let me rephrase it. I What we just discussed makes a lot of sense, but where I see the challenge is Atlassian, specifically Jira. I feel like within the industries already has like there's almost like a prejudice against Jira, right? Like Jira's supposed to just do one thing. And I feel like Atlassian has an uphill battle with trying to, you know, what you said, horizontalize themselves, right? Because so many teams just kind of already come in with the preconceived notion of what Jira is supposed to do, and they're like, we don't identify with that. And so, how do you think partners can help there with that stigma?
So they have to be, I'm going to use the word intentional again, and showcase Atlassian doing those things. You picked Jira. Showcase using Jira for work management. Showcase using Jira for HR. Showcase these things that Atlassian has already given us the blueprint for, but actually build them and show them off to customers to say, hey, this is actually going to work. This is how it can work. And one of the things that I think solution partners have done for a long time is they have come in with this mindset that everything is going to be bespoke. That you come as a customer to them and they're going to customize every detail to your exact needs. And while that's fine, it's also very expensive for the customer. And I think that if instead solution partners were to invest a certain amount of time into pre-building solutions that resonate with a particular industry, then it's a matter of customizing that solution so that you've got a baseline that you're iterating on,
Mm.
as opposed to building something from scratch every time.
It's almost like microservices in the software world,
Mhm.
right? You have maybe Jira, maybe being a solution partner in the future becomes more of a, you have a box full of already built to made pieces, and you just got to figure out which ones connect together to build a solution.
Yeah,
So,
it's building blocks. That's the whole concept, is building blocks.
yeah. So you gotta you have to almost take a step back, abstract the things that you're doing today already well, and figure out how do we templatize or make a framework out of this or repeatable steps that can then be custom tailored if you need to that little 5% change, right? As opposed to doing a brand new out of the box custom solution that's 100% customized.
I think it's closer to 20%, but yes,
20? Okay.
you're absolutely right. You build 80% of it, you leave 20%, and then you basically tell the customer, look, we can deliver value and give you 80% of what you're looking for in a matter of weeks
Mhm.
through pre-built deployment, right? And then the customer can decide how long they want to iterate, getting that last 20% to the place that they want. And then
But
it becomes an investment that they make, that they
right.
decide intentionally to make.
But what is value then? Because every business and industry and individual perceives value differently.
Mm. You have to, so the way that I envision this is that when you pre-build something to 80%, you are delivering to a customer something that is almost instantaneously going to give you a return on investment. That return on investment has a value. It has a dollar figure attached to it that you can actually calculate. And the math is really complicated and requires a lot of tracking of individual KPIs and metrics that I'm not going to go into today. But
But make sure you subscribe and come back for a part two.
exactly. But I think that the idea here is that the value that you get out of these tools can be exponentially increased simply by realizing that a baseline is where you should start, as opposed to a blank canvas.
Mhm. Yeah, because I find that when you kind of like if you're a writer, and this is one of the reasons why I love like ChatGPT and AI, generative AI at least, because I can stare at a blank piece of paper for a day and not a single original thought can come to my mind. right? But having a little bit of a, a guide or a catalyst or just a little kick can go a long way to just get that ball actually rolling, because getting the ball to roll is really challenging. But once you got some momentum, it's very easy to pivot, or easier to pivot, I should say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm huge on AI. And I think that it is a catalyst that can accelerate just about anything. I'll give you an example. So one of the things that I do in my free time is I write music, and I have for a very long time. And um, I have a guitar right there. You can kind of see the neck of it. Um, and I play piano and a bunch of other instruments, but I don't have time to sit down and compose because it takes a lot of energy and effort. And what I found is that I can use generative AI to describe what it is I want it to sound like. And then there are tools that can translate those descriptions into music. So I think that AI is a catalyst. And I think that using AI in the context of Atlassian becomes incredibly powerful when you can take ideas that start off as a Confluence page or a Jira issue and expand on them really quickly.
Yeah, and this is something I've been trying to focus on too, because last night as we were wrapping up Mother's Day and just thinking about AI, as one naturally does, only because typical husband fashion and father that I am, we decided to wait till 9 p.m. for my kids to do their Mother's Day gift. And so my oldest son and I were sitting in my office here trying to figure out what do we do for mom, with given that it's 9 p.m. And so intuitively, we went to ChatGPT and I said, it's 9 p.m. on Mother's Day. Help us out here with items that we should be able to find around the house. And so we actually came up with a pretty good idea and we implemented it. It took us like an hour to get it all set up. But anyway, so again, AI thinking about, and I was like, how in the world can businesses leverage AI, but in a way that is not hurtful, but augments, right? Because I think a lot of companies are still a little shy with AI. I think there's still some privacy concerns. There's some I'll put it in air quotes. Like I feel like AI is almost cheating, right? Like yesterday with my son and I, we should have spent all the way till like midnight trying to figure this out by ourselves, right?
Well, should you? I mean, if you have the tool available, I mean, do you dig a hole in your backyard by hand or do you use a shovel? AI
Right.
is a tool.
It is. Yeah, no, and that's kind of like, but there's still that stigma that maybe it didn't come from the heart, right? And so when I look at like project managers and stuff like that, how I was trying to tie it back in with Jira and stuff, right? How do you leverage the power of AI? But I like what you're saying, right? It's a tool, it's a shovel, right? It's a hammer, and you'd be foolish to get a chopsticks and start digging a hole with chopsticks.
Right, right. Choose the right tool for the job. And to your point about it feeling somewhat disingenuous, remember that AI today is built on the knowledge of our ancestors. Everything we do today is built on the knowledge of our ancestors. The web platform that we're using to stream this is built on the knowledge of the people who built it,
Hmm.
and we're leveraging it. It's a tool. AI just happens to help us ideate faster. And the reason it feels like, you're stealing ideas or something like that is because AI is thinking faster than you are in some cases. And it's giving you ideas that you're like, well, that's a great idea. It's just not mine. But the
I
thing
know,
is,
it's like,
it's that you're the one that put the input in.
mhm.
And the amount of information you give it is directly correlated to the quality of the output that you get. If I say write a blog post on AI to ChatGPT, it's going to come out with something very generic, very boring. But if I write all of my thoughts on AI into the tool and say, turn this into a blog post that makes sense, it's going to do a much better job.
Absolutely. And you're starting to see that now with memory enabled, like within ChatGPT, right? I told my wife's like, should I delete my old conversations? And I'm like, I wouldn't. She was like, why not? I'm like, because ChatGPT is knowing who you are. Like it's learning who you are. She's like, what do you mean by that? I'm like, ask it to describe who you are.
Mhm.
And she did, and like she's like, wow, this is very spot on. I'm like, I know because it's taking all that. It's almost kind of reading in between the lines on your thought process, right? On every time you feed it data, and it gets to know how you think and who you are and how you are.
Mhm.
And I think going back to Atlassian, you can really leverage that in a very profound way to add value to your company. Because as humans, we can't, like, I have notes everywhere, right? My brain is scattered all over the place. Kind of told you this is why I have a whiteboard full of stuff and I feel so overwhelmed. But I think I can see at last, or I can see AI taking my whiteboard and going, help me get started. Where
Mhm.
should I start? Help me get my first foot forward to get some traction.
So to stay on the Atlassian topic, think about the memory of Chat GPT and what you said about your wife and asking it who am I sort of questions. Um, Imagine now Confluence being your memory and Jira being your memory and all of the tools that Rovo connects to being your memory,
Mhm.
and then saying, tell me who I am as a company
Or as an individual contributor
or
even.
as an individual contributor.
Yeah.
What are my accomplishments this year? Think
And
about it in the terms of like performance reviews. It would be so much easier to say, what did I achieve this year to Rovo? And it spit out everything that you've done because it knows it has context.
yeah, and that teamwork graph is gonna be very revolutionary, I think. When you look at the competitors of Atlassian, and I told this to Mike at team, I was like, and I don't think he understood exactly what I was asking him, but I was along the lines of like teamwork graph and what Atlassian's investing there and their interoperability with all the other tools, gonna leave any competitor that Atlassian has in the dust, unless they go figure out how to do this too.
Mhm.
Because to have that institutional knowledge at the individual level, it'd be like having on like each individual contributor would be like having 100 individual contributors working together in synchrony.
Mhm. Yeah, it's an incredible it's incredible to think about what is going to be possible in just 6, 12, 18 months.
Pause and smile because with like all good things in Atlassian, they're really good at telling us. I'm waiting for the show. Wait, I want to see it.
It's
I
always a
haven't.
slow burn.
Yeah.
It's always a slow burn. Like these things aren't instantaneous. I mean, think about what ChatGPT was like 2 years ago when it first launched. Has it been 2 years or 3
Yeah. No,
years?
it's been at least a little over two,
Okay.
I would say.
But think about
But
what it
not
was like
ChatGPT.
when it first came out, like when version ChatGPT, what was it, 4 or 3?
Mhm.
3 came
3, I
out?
think 3, yeah.
3. Yeah, when ChatGPT 3 came out, it was cool, but it wasn't great. And it's gotten so much better. That
Yeah.
same sort of iterative development is happening at Atlassian every day. And we will see the fruits of that soon. I don't think it's years away. I like I said, I think it's 6, 12, and 18 months out that we're going to see incremental improvements. And I think that the team events, we're going to see those improvements each time. I mean, Rovo was announced a year ago as a like, we're working on this sort of thing.
Mhm.
It was launched at Team 6 months later
And Barcelona.
in Barcelona. This time they said, we're going to make it available to everybody. So think about, okay, what's the next step? Well, it gets better every time. So I think that there's a lot of possibility there.
Yeah. Now going tying that back with our conversation about industries, right? Especially one that you said very curious to me, regulated industries. How do you see companies or industries that are just gonna say no, we don't want this due to privacy concerns, data concerns, right? So you agree that yes, that will happen, but what do you think then will happen to those industries in the long
Tho
term?
those industries are already behind. If you look at the technology stack in an insurance company, they're still using IBM mainframes to manage their policies, not for any bad reason. That code, that COBOL code that exists on those mainframes is basically bulletproof, right? So there is good reason to stick to tried and true. But at the same time, the regulations around those industries oftentimes prevent them from being able to adopt newer tech. So
Hmm.
what you're seeing is a rise in insurtech, where they are building compliance solutions around insurance for the industry that allow the industry to start moving forward faster. Um, and so there's this kind of delay as the insurance tech industry gets built up and the insurance industry catches up to insurtech and then starts to catch up to the rest of the
Yeah.
world.
And what do you, so I'm glad you're talking about insurance because so my son, my 13-year-old son, we ponder a lot. we we think a lot, and we were looking at the. So I live in Southern California, and about middle of March, we were in Pasadena, which is very very close to Altadena, where the devastating fires happened. And my sons, my children have grown up with everything, right? I'm a child of an immigrant parent, so I grew up with a pretty comfortable lifestyle. But my parents, my mom went days without eating sometimes, right? So I think my children, they're very, very spoiled. So I was like, you know what, let's take them down. And I wanted them to see what devastation looks like because they've never witnessed a natural disaster at that level, right? It was very eye opening for my son to look at it because he's turning into a very mature period of his time where he thinks deeper about what life is to him as a teenager and stuff, right? And we talk about business a lot because I instill a lot of the entrepreneurial things in him, and we're thinking like, so I told him, I'm like, what could we do to prevent fires? Like how can you build technologies and advancements to prevent, right? Because insurance is one part, right? You got to protect against it. But I was like, what if you don't even need insurance? Like what kind of world can you create that would like cause accidents to never happen in cars, fires to never happen, right? And so that's kind of the level that I want him to be thinking at. Um, just just to better the world sometime one day.
Mm, yeah. Well, and I think that that is such a great thing to instill in your child, to think about the possibilities. But also, I think I would encourage you to ask them to study the history of why there are fires in Southern California. Why are there? I live in Oregon,
I
and I know a thing or two about wildfires too.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um, and it comes down to forest management and it comes down to behaviors of people. There are two main reasons that we have wildfires in Oregon. One is lightning causing a fire, which can be mitigated to some extent by active forest management. And then the other is human caused, which can happen from anything from throwing a cigarette out while you're driving through a national forest to um, simply leaving your coals smoldering when you leave a campsite. Completely unintentional in either case, but you can start a fire that easily. So there are two things there, right? One is the history of forest management and what you've done and what you haven't done. And then the other is behavioral. And I think the behavioral is interesting because it becomes an education aspect. Like, why shouldn't you litter? Why shouldn't you leave your coals burning? Why should you drench your fire with water to make sure it's completely out? And I think that organizations like the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, they have done a great job of educating youth, but the general public doesn't have that knowledge and they just want to go camping and have a
yeah.
great time and cook hot dogs. Go ahead.
But bringing this then back to Atlassian, I think if companies start to then document their failures or the lessons learned within tools like Confluence, then you can also imagine like because there's generations, right? Like in within an
Hmm.
industry, within a company, where maybe 5 years ago we had this genius idea, right? It was going to be revolutionary, but it didn't pan out for whatever reason, but then history repeats itself. And so using that Rovo, right? Having access to that thing, go, this is what happened. But I can see Rovo taking a step further, right? Because it could read in between the lines and go, this is what you tried. Maybe if you did this, you'd increase your
Ah,
chances of success.
well, that's a great follow-up question to the initial Robo conversation of, have we ever tried X? Okay, what worked, what didn't work, and what can we do differently? That would be the follow-up question I would ask to AI,
Hmm.
right? Like, use that institutional knowledge, that history, to inform the decisions you're making. And I think that one of the things that really stands out to me about AI and Rovo and what is happening in the industry is that you have to have a product mindset, right? When I say that, I mean like a product manager mindset, like thinking about, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, those sorts of things. When you're using AI, you have to think about, okay, what makes sense to tell the AI, what doesn't make sense to tell the AI, and what's going to give me the output that I want. Because for a product manager, engineering is a black box. They write their requirements, they give it to engineering, engineering gives them something back. AI is the same thing. I write my requirements, I feed it into the AI, it's a black box, it comes back with a result. Sometimes the result is what I want, sometimes the result is not what I want. The difference is how much information I gave it up front to describe what I wanted and how accurate that was to the vision that I had.
Yeah, and I can see just you're basically describing prompt engineering, right? Like folks
Mhm.
will need to learn how to prompt your AIs because it's not the same thing as Googling something.
No,
It's so much deeper. And I think we've been learned or we've been taught to learn how to Google, but it will take some time.
keywords.
Yeah.
Yeah, you give it keywords and it gives you back things that you have to then build the context around, as opposed to building the context yourself and getting the output that you want.
Yeah. And that's I think that's what's gonna frustrate a lot of maybe I don't want to label people, but like non-tech people, right? Like people that aren't in the AI world as much as maybe you and I are in, you're gonna yield different results that
Mhm.
maybe are accurate, maybe are inaccurate. But I always think of like technology like from my mom's perspective, right? Of like what is she gonna be comfortable with? What is she not gonna be comfortable with? What am I gonna have to help her out with? Because at the end of the day, it's my responsibility. And again, just growing and scaling that back to your company, right? Because your target demographic is 18 to 65, right? Yeah, a company can have anywhere from a very very young employee like my son grew up with an iPad in his hand,
Mhm.
right? Versus you still have 64, 65 year olds that are my mom's age that are still working today, and there's such a vast difference of their comfort, their understanding, their want to understand, their want to try AI, and it's an interesting dynamic that I think a lot of companies are going to have to play out, especially when we go back to our conversation of like how do we like templatize and building block processes and ways of doing work. You have to accommodate for the discrepancies and the levels of comfort for the technology as well.
Yeah. It's no different going back to the tool, the shovel analogy, right? Like, would you get in a forklift and say, "Oh yeah, I can do this," and say I can operate a forklift, having never operated one before?
Well, I operate under the pretext that I'm an engineer, so I figure it out. But that was instilled in me in college, and that was a mental shift that a professor instilled on me. But not everybody has that go get him attitude, right?
Absolutely, but and that's the right mindset to have, but not everyone has that mindset. So most people wouldn't get in a forklift ever. They would never even consider getting in a forklift because it's complicated. The controls are all over the place. Yes, it has a steering wheel and a gas pedal and a brake, but what about the rest of it? What about all these levers that you have to
Oh yeah.
pull?
No, I perfect example is this weekend, Mother's Day, right? So I'm driving around with my mom, and she's like, "When do you get to teach me how to drive this Tesla? I have a Tesla." And I'm like, "Mom, it's no different than your car." And she's like, "No, it's very different." I'm like, "No, you just press down and you go." Like it's intuitively it's the same thing. You still have your steering wheel, your pedals, and you move, but the experience is drastically different. That my mom's just like, "I'm not getting anywhere near that car."
Well, it's all the extra controls, right? It
Or lack thereof.
or
In my
lack
case.
thereof. Well, I mean, there's one big digital control board in the middle of that car that makes people really nervous
Mhm.
because it's new technology. And this is actually something I've written about a lot, is that when something new is introduced, there are always people who are reticent to adopt it. Um, and this can be seen throughout human history, right? The difference is that people who are on the adoption curve of the early adopters, they're the ones that end up benefiting the most because they see the most value given back from learning that technology and learning that tool and how to use it effectively. While the
Right.
laggards, the ones on the other side of the bell curve, um, they are kind of the begrudging adopters that say, "Fine, I'll use it." I
Yeah, I
mean,
mean,
does your mom use an iPhone or an Android?
forcibly, yeah.
Forcibly, but she's learned it,
Yeah. No,
right?
and that's exactly what I tell my mom dominates Facebook, and I'm like, "Why don't you move on to," because the world of Facebook has shifted, right? The most people aren't on Facebook as much anymore, right? And I'm like, "Well, there's newer TikTok and Instagram." She's like, "No, no, no. I don't know any of those." I'm like, "Well, there was a point in your life where you did not know how to use Facebook either." But you've mastered Facebook through all the years and hours of experience that you have in it, and, like, it's just a you gotta go do that, and I feel like going back to Atlassian and AI, right? Like, there's gonna be industries that adopt 100% AI, but then even within those industries that are, 100% got, like, pro AI, there's gonna be a lot of folks internally that are like, "We're not too sure about this."
Yeah.
And this is gonna
Yeah,
be an
you're
interesting time.
it really is. It really is.
But I wanted
Um,
to add one more piece there. Steve Jobs, Bill Gates were in that curve in the 19 that period of what, 60s, 70s, where those mainframes were coming out, and they jumped at it, right? They jumped at these opportunities to look at a new technology and really embrace it, and then look what was created versus the laggers, like you said, right? They usually just became the employees.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is Atlassian isn't a new company, but it has a lot of new tech that they're using. And I think that for companies that adopt the new tech sooner rather than later, they are going to be the ones that will still be around. I mean, Atlassian is a 20-year-old company. How many tech companies have been around for 20 years and are still doing really well? Not very many.
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
you see some big names out there that have really built a name for themselves. But if you look at what they're doing, they're all cutting edge. They're not laggards that are still doing the same thing they were doing 20 years ago.
yeah. And I mean, Google's a great example, right? I think Google I can't tell you the last time I went back to Google. 'Cause I use ChatGPT to ask it questions. I don't Google I Google some stuff, but in my brain, I'm like 80% ChatGPT and 20% Google at this point.
Hmm.
'Cause I don't need what Google offers me. But
Right.
because of that, Gemini is not something that's the top of my mind right now. Even because they came in so late, right? Like, even though supposedly this I've heard the 2.5 is a lot better than current ChatGPT models, but my mind and my intuitiveness is down to I have ChatGPT open on my browser all day long,
Mhm.
but I don't necessarily have Google open anymore. And
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same. I Google things when I'm looking for a URL. I find when I search for a keyword in ChatGPT, it takes too long to give me the result. It's too slow. But I can Google the name of a company and find the website really quickly. That's the only time I ever use Google. But your comment about Gemini and ChatGPT, and I'll throw Anthropic's Claude in here. Um, I find that each model is really good at different things. Um, ChatGPT is kind of a general workhorse that can do just about anything. Google is really good, or Gemini rather, is really good at um, creative writing, and also really good at combining sources and information from all over the place because of their search background. And Anthropic is really good at code. I don't know if you've tried vibe coding yet,
it's
but
the top of my mind. Top
it's
of
top
my
of
mind.
your mind.
Yes. I have
Well,
my wife is actually vibe coding her way through our very first Atlassian marketplace app that we're trying to build.
way to go. Way to go.
It's still a long ways off, mainly because Forge is not as well documented or well known as, like a Python or something, right? But we're struggling through it.
Hey, at least you're struggling through it, right? You're not giving up. You're giving it a shot. So the point I was making is that each of these models have their use cases, right?
Mhm.
You mentioned earlier shovel, hammer. I'll throw screwdriver in there because I threw Claude in there. They all have different use cases. So you pick the right tool for the job.
Yeah. You know what? It's you familiar with Mythbusters?
I am.
What's his name? He wrote a book. Not
Adam
the
or Jamie?
Adam. Adam wrote the book on Every Tool's a Hammer. And I was so excited. It's one of my biggest letdowns. Have you read his book, Every Tool's a
I
Hammer?
haven't.
So he wrote a book, Every Tool's a Hammer, and here's a guy from Mythbusters who's, as an engineer, like he's like a model engineer, right? Like when you take curiosity and the principles and what it means to just be a curious individual to see what happens, cause and effect, I think is the basis of engineering, right? And and here's a guy who so many years of experience, so much to give the world, and he writes his book, Every Tool's a Hammer. And I walked in with every expectation that every tool's a hammer is a metaphor, right? Because I my background, my wife and I both went to school at the same time, same major, same school, same everything. She's just a little bit older than me, which meant I had she was my chat GPT for my for she was my personal tutor to graduate from college. And but we had a professor one year who just didn't show up. He For whatever reason, he decided not to show up to the first day of school or class. And so the department chair scrambled and went and found the computer technician for the department to go and teach the class because the qualifications, you need to have a master's, and that's it. Right? So he had a master's, and he's like, "Here's a book. Go teach this class." And he walks in, never taught in a class before, and goes, "What the heck am I supposed to do here with a bunch of engineers, aspiring engineers?" And so that semester was probably one of the toughest semesters of my college degree because he had no idea how to teach us. He had no idea how to help us. He had no idea how to do much of anything.
Mm.
But he taught us that one thing, that you're an engineer, go figure it out, right? And to this day, like, he was at my wedding. He comes to kids' birthday parties and stuff because out of all the things that I learned in that 5-year degree, that's the one thing that I use daily, if not hourly. And that is, I'm an engineer, go figure it out, right? And I forgot why I'm telling you this, but
Well, we were talking about AI
oh
and the
yeah, and
different
well,
use
the every tool
cases.
I was telling you
Every
because of
tool's
the
a
every tool
hammer.
the hammer, because I felt like that was an opportunity for Adam to like say, look, this is the mindset you want to have. Like, it doesn't matter what tool you have. Every tool has its purpose, and you can solve any problem depending on what tool you have. Because my wife and I have also learned through home being a homeowner that the right tool will make the job infinitely easier
Mhm.
than not having the right tool. And so that's kind of what I was hoping. But no, the book is literally about describing the differences in like diameters of hammers. And so
I
it was
love
a
that.
it was an interesting book where it's like literally like here's how I organize my tools in my toolbox.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, Adam, you could have like told us the most inspirational thing and how to perceive the world of engineering and curiosity and but yeah. So just if you ever read the book, just be prepared to like not be motivated by.
Okay. Okay. I'll keep that in mind.
Oh, Caroline, this has been fun. I wanted to go back one last topic here because I know we're running out of time. One of the struggles that I usually have is with my stakeholders internally, right? So we're adapting new technologies. We come in with these building blocks. We have these things that we're recommending solution partners to have. But I often find myself like the buyout from a CTO, a VP, right, CIO. They are usually expecting to see a specific way to see a result, but that way is usually in PowerPoint or usually in an Excel file. How do you help with that, right? Because you're trying to drive new technology adoption, a new way of doing work, but at the same time, the decision maker is expecting a very manual or old school output.
Are they though?
So my personal experience, I went in, revamped the Jira for somebody, and like A to Z streamlined it. I come in because I have a framework. I have a way to massage Jira to make it work, right?
Mhm.
And then I document it all, but I document it into a Confluence whiteboard. And I remember walking the stakeholder through my Confluence whiteboard. I'm like, here's the was, here's the is, or the new is situation on what was, how your Jira was set up. Here's how it is set up. Here's the differences. Here's the like the Rosetta Stone of what I changed and stuff. And she's like, Alex, none of this makes sense. And so I took screenshots of my whiteboard, put it in PowerPoint, and the next day she was just like livid. She was just like so excited because it all made sense to her that same day. And I'm like, how? Like to me, it's resonating. I'm like, how is it? Why is it that I try to walk her through a whiteboard, but it didn't have the same impact than literally a picture of the whiteboard in a PowerPoint.
So I think it's context. Too much information is overwhelming. Presenting it in bite-sized chunks is the important thing, and providing context around why you made those changes, where you made those changes, and when you made those changes. That was the difference.
But let's think about this though as a solution partner though, right? Like you're gonna come in, won't it be overwhelming with because especially when you're leveraging the power of AI, like you're quick and you have so much going on and it's easy to get caught up in the excitement of the change and very easily overwhelm folks that are not quite ready for this level of change or excitement as well.
I mean, you're the chances of you working with a customer that is that reticent are very low,
Mm.
right? Most
I need
of
to
these
find new
customers,
industries.
well, think about what I mean by that maybe is maybe I wasn't clear enough. When you end up working with a company, they're looking for change. They have something in mind that they're thinking about that
Mm.
they want to happen. You just have to uncover what it is, what they are wanting to happen, what their vision is, and make sure you speak in the same language as their vision.
And I would recommend you do that discovery early on in your
Oh,
process.
absolutely. Absolutely. You have to start there. You can't
Yeah.
end there. You have
But
to begin there.
But then what about like Steve Jobs' quote of like your customer doesn't know what they want until you show it to them, right? Like, is it possible for somebody to have an idea, but it not be the right idea?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's why I said early on that we need to build the 80% and leave the 20%. Because if you build that 80%, you can show them, hey, this is
Mm,
what we build. And if it resonates with you, we can customize it to your exact needs. If it doesn't, we're not the right fit for you. It's that easy.
that makes a lot of sense. Well, it's amazing how you like you explain it in 10 seconds and it just all a lot of my pain points click. Oh, that's just powerful. I would say like again, sometimes like you have to have like a third party explain something so simple and rudimentary to you for it to be pretty impactful because it really is that simple. And I'm just again, my mind's just racing with how you do things better the next go around.
Oh,
So, Caroline, just to end this thing, so Team 25 back first time in 25, or sorry, in first time back in 10 years for Team 25. What was the most memorable thing that you walked out of there with? Besides meeting me, of course, because I'm just kidding.
I for me it was um, the energy of the conference. This particular I've been to team for the last many, many years, every year, but the energy of this team was far more electric and excited about the prospects of what Atlassian is doing than previous conferences. Maybe that had something to do with it being in Anaheim as opposed to Las Vegas, which felt draining to me. But I think that Atlassian is on the right course as a company, that they're doing the right things, they have the right motions, and I'm very excited about the future that they have.
Awesome. And so, why don't you tell us a little bit about Digital Wafer as well, and kind of what you're doing there, and where can people find
Ah,
you, and what you're
yeah,
doing for there?
so you can find me at digital-wayfarer.com. That's maybe Alex can throw it up on
Yeah,
the
I'll include it in the description.
great.
Yeah,
And
and we'll see if we can get a little pop up here.
and I'm just doing Atlassian consulting and general consulting. But that's the customer focused part. The other part that I'm actually doing is I'm helping marketplace partners. And uh, I'm working with folks like the Compliance Alliance to help their go to market strategy and uh, doing more thinking around how we bring solutions to market that are more purpose built and more intentional.
Mhm. No, and I think it's my hat's off to you because as I was researching to, learn who Caroline was, the word, if I could summarize you, would be thoughtful.
Oh, thank you.
And I think we need more of that because I shoot from the hip. I think I like to think a lot and I ponder a lot, but I don't know. I've always been in awe of like PhDs and researchers who spend their entire times thinking. And I'm more of a just see shoot at something and see what happens and see what sticks. Throw things on the wall. But I think the world needs a lot of folks like you to help, especially in this era of AI, right? Because things are happening so quickly, it can be very overwhelming with
It
all
can
the
be.
signals, so many things that sometimes it's hard to just figure out which way's up. So,
Absolutely.
final thoughts?
Oh, final thought was just that this has been a great chat. I've really enjoyed talking to you. And I hope we get a chance to talk again.
Yeah, no, we definitely will have to do it again. I do want to be mindful of your time, so I know we're right at the time here. So, Caroline, thank you so much for coming on and appreciate you being here. I'll let you know when it goes live. And again, thank you so much. This was very valuable. You made a lot of things in my mind click that hadn't been clicking,
Oh,
and,
well,
and
I'm
so
glad.
so appreciate you for that. I mean, I kind of joked about it at the beginning, but this was probably a really good therapy session. Send me a bill.
All right.
Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Caroline.
Alex.
Good luck on your endeavors. I wish you the best. I'm right there with you. It's so scary, and so I'm so proud and so happy that you're doing it because it's scary.
All right. Thanks.